So who would like to get us started with generating the bold statement? Core supervisors.
I will.
Hey, Tom. Thank you.
We, the course supervisors, are given by a possibility bigger than ourselves, holding as sacred the integrity of the clearing in which transformation occurs, master providers of all that is needed. Oh wait, I just screwed up. Sorry. I'm like totally not present.
Okay, go.
I just jumped off this mock and I'm still kind of like, I was like, okay, I gotta go at 7. Bye. Okay.
Okay, Tom.
We,
That's all.
we, the core supervisors, are given by a possibility bigger than ourselves, holding as sacred the integrity of the clearing in which transformation occurs, causing the fulfillment of our brand, master providers of all that is needed.
One more time.
We, the core supervisors, are given by a possibility bigger than ourselves, holding as sacred the clearing in which integrity occurs. Is that wrong?
It's not correct. We'll say that. It's not the proper order.
Oh, holding as sacred the integrity of the clearing in which transformation occurs, causing the fulfillment of our brand, master providers of all that is needed.
I don't know where you're getting all that is needed, whatever is needed. Master providers of whatever is needed. So one more time.
We, the core supervisors, are given by a possibility bigger than ourselves, holding as sacred the integrity of the clearing in which transformation occurs, causing the fulfillment of our brand, master providers of whatever is needed.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just elusive, those proper words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That help you make the transition from your mock into this call?
Yeah, I feel a little calmer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody game to do the reason for the existence of the enterprise?
I'll do.
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Okay.
Tim?
The reason for the existence of our enterprise. As an enterprise, we exist to empower and enable people in fulfilling those matters that are of interest or importance to them, and in the process, leave them transformed with more power, freedom, self-expression, and peace of mind.
Great. Peace of mind. Got that. I wonder, every time I hear that or I generate it, I wonder if it's changed. You know, we were going to have that new branding event. And I just wonder if anything would have been different in the branding event. So I guess I'll just keep wondering.
Awesome.
Yeah, no big deal. Do you have any idea when we're going to have that branding event, Tim? Or is it just like on the table or off the table for right now?
Not on the table at the moment.
Yeah.
Considering all of the evolution that's happening.
Yeah.
That's not what's there for us yet.
Yeah. I guess we're still in process of reinventing the enterprise. Yeah. Yeah. Which is a pretty miraculous thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we're agile and adept enough to dance with the new circumstances that we found ourselves in, huh? That we've landed on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so last week we had an awesome call and we did the disappearance exercise. And Tim, I didn't get the link, but I'm presuming it's up on the Zoom calls on the website.
Just so everybody knows, I don't share the link anymore because it's just the playlist.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the
All
YouTube
right.
playlist has it. It's there.
Okay.
Essentially, after the meeting completes and the recording has been processed by Zoom, I get an email, I download it, I cut off the beginnings and the ends that don't need to be there, and I upload it. So it's there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so tonight we are going to embark on a new phase of our adventure of the advanced course, and it's going to be led by Jamie. And we're going to be talking about the different tests for reality that we use in our lives. So, Jamie, take it away.
Great. Just very quickly before I get into that, I just, Tom, when you created the bold statement, was really present to holding as sacred the integrity of the clearing in which transformation occurs, and the specific words used there. And I just, I shared in the WhatsApp, I was, been stressed and anxious lately, and I just, with my coach, I really got how inauthentic that is to holding as sacred the integrity of the clearing in which transformation occurs. And one of the ways that showed up for me is, I'm a mentor in the program. And so, one of my mentees may have happened to miss an integrity report and is dealing with a lot of breakdowns. And you know what? I was like, man, that's totally my clearing, So I really just am really present to that aspect of the bold statement. As a course supervisor, I'm bringing course supervisor to my life and what I'm committed to. And I'm, now I'm looking, how does that tie into the tests of reality? So let's see.
Well, that's really awesome, Jamie. Thank you, though, for sharing that.
Yeah, and it's just in my space, so I just wanted to say that, especially the way you created that, Tom. You just really brought it present. So, okay. This is one of my very favorite distinctions. And there's the personal test for reality, the interim test, and then the ultimate test of reality. And I find it's very useful, not only just for knowing what's maybe real, but for me distinguishing all the things I think are real, maybe not necessarily so. Maybe I made some things up, right? So I find it very empowering to be in the world of empty and meaningless. I mean, it's just this distinction that really steers us in that direction. So am I allowed to share my screen?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know I'm allowed, but do I?
In other words,
Was it set up?
yes, you can.
Okay. So, all right. So I just made a little document here. Is that, that's not maximized, is it?
I can see it really well.
I can see it well.
That's
Yeah.
better, right? Okay. Cool.
Looks perfect.
All right. Well, let's start.
My reality looks perfect, okay?
Okay, good. How it looks to you. Good. All right. So in the advanced course, the first test that's introduced is the personal test for reality. This is probably introduced on Friday, although I don't remember. Can anybody confirm that?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So my experience is the personal test for reality is generally a person's test for reality, period. And it's things that, like, that we sense, that we see, that we might experience, we might hear, we might believe, So what are some of the ways that you, let's say, observe reality from your personal space?
I listen for what said, what I see.
Yeah. So what you see, good.
What I hear.
Right. You might smell something.
Yeah.
Smell something burning, right? Yeah.
Taste.
Yeah.
Something tastes really good.
Yeah. Well, what are all of these?
The five senses.
the senses.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. So I don't know about you guys, but if somebody asks me, how do I know what's real? I'd say seeing is believing, you know, that's basically it. If I saw it, that happens, you know, or if I heard it, you know, and this is the personal test, right? So that's one of the categories for the personal test is all your senses, things you hear, see, smell, touch. You could put touch. It's the other sense, right? All right, good. So what are some other personal ways that you observe reality?
Believe.
Belief, good. What are some beliefs you have that you believe something's real?
Well, my religious beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
believe the world is round.
Right.
Um,
Not everybody believes that.
I know, I just heard something that was crazy, that there's a whole organization of the Flat Earth Society.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some other beliefs are that I have close relationships with my friends and my family. I believe that I'm happy.
So like the relationship one, so you believe that you have a close relationship.
Yes.
That's your belief. I got it. Good one. I like that.
We have political beliefs right now. Well, probably always, but we're
They're
present to them right now.
Amy,
Yeah. Yes.
there are, like for myself, there's, like I grew up with certain etiquette beliefs, you know, like people should say hello and people should shake hands and,
Yeah.
you know,
Like what's good and bad behavior, polite, you know.
yeah. Yeah, what you should or shouldn't do. And, yeah, and I can get that, I can do a lot of testing with that.
Yeah,
And
well, that's a good one, Pedro, and that kind of leads me to another one, which it's beliefs, but it's also kind of like your past experiences.
exactly, that's what I was going to say. It's based on past experience.
Like in the past, it was like that, so it's like that now.
Yeah.
Oh, I use that one quite a bit.
Me too.
Me too.
I have like my intuition, my gut feeling.
Yeah, good. How does that? Can you give us an example?
Well, you know, I'll be having a conversation with someone and then just well, it shows up as a thought, but I have no basis. There's no evidence of it, but there's just like I just have like an intuition that there's something about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. You just mentioned another one, Tim.
Yeah. A thought. Mm-hmm.
Thoughts.
Mm.
And then for me, because I'm very logical, there's just the logic of it. Well, if this, then this has to be. So it's definitely real.
Yeah,
There, she's back.
yeah, I get that one as well. Like it's like I'm so right that it's real. Good. Anything else for anybody? Ways that you personally observe the world?
Well, this might go under thoughts, but certainly judgments and evaluations and assessments.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And do you see yourself making those and making them real, Sherry?
Oh, yeah.
Like you don't see it
mean-
like as a judgment. You just see it as that's true.
That's the way things are. Yeah. Yeah.
That person
Feelings.
is mean.
Could be that. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom. Tom, say that again.
feelings.
Yeah,
Kind of goes along with beliefs, I guess. You know,
good.
Things you learned, like not experiences, like actual things you learned, like
Mm,
gravity.
Such
Like
as,
school.
Gravity,
knowledge.
like knowledge, right? So I know there's gravity because I learned it.
So it's a belief. You believe there's gravity because someone told you.
It's not a belief, it's just scientific. There's proof for it.
how did you
So
discover that proof?
by reading it.
Yeah, so you used your eyes.
Well, so there's no learning or like
No, this. I'm not saying this is not necessarily not real. It's just
It's a personal. Is this a personal test for reality?
well, I think maybe what you're kind of saying, Desiree, is that you have stuff that you've learned in the past, maybe at school or whatever, and then something happens and you compare that to what you already know. So that could be belief, or that could be past experiences, but if
So
it matches up,
how
if it
is
matches
past
up with all
experience
you,
a personal test for reality?
say it again. I'm sorry I couldn't hear you.
How is past experiences a personal test
Your-
for reality? Or is
It's
it the
your
same?
in your past experience that you've had this experience, and then you create that there's something real about what's currently going on now based on a past experience. Like that has to be so because it happened before.
Yeah, like I have a past experience of driving in England, and I have it. That's really dangerous.
It
It might
is.
not.
I give you
Or-
agreement there.
Or driving in Miami, or
When we get to interim reality, Desiree, let's look at what you've learned.
yeah.
Well, but there could be something like, okay, I raised my hand, I got the answer wrong, that was no good, I'm not going to do that again. That's a past experience, and it always then occurs for you as, I'm not going to raise my hand because the
Yeah.
reality is I'm going to get the wrong answer.
Yeah, and you're going to be embarrassed. It's not going to go well.
But that's not a personal test for reality. It doesn't test that it's real, right? Maybe that's where I'm.
Well, for you, it's real. I mean, for the person who has that interpretation of the experience, that becomes his or her reality, right?
But what are you testing? That's where I'm confused. What are we defining as the personal, the things that we believe, or the things that, how we test that things are true or real?
That are real. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it would fall into your justification, your decision-making process for whatever you do next. So if you had it real that, oh my God, I can't possibly get embarrassed like that again. If that was the truth, that's a personal test for reality, and it becomes your reality at that moment.
And you don't act like it's a personal test. You just act like that's real. Like if I ask a girl on the date, that's not going to go well. I'm just not going to do that anymore because it's so uncomfortable. Because they always say no. I'm no good at it.
But you might couch it in something like, I don't really want to. No, it's not for me.
It doesn't show up like oh, that was just my past experience. No, it shows up like that's real. I'm not good at this, or which is also a judgment.
Mm.
The thing that I just find, like I kind of said before, that's so striking about the personal test is like, I remember when I did the advanced course, I was like, man, what are you talking about? This is, how else could you observe reality? This is the ways. You see it? That's real.
Right. Right. They actually create this conversation in the beginning as they start out as what is the ultimate test for reality? even though they don't go into the actual ultimate test. But in beginning the conversation about reality, they actually start talking about and creating what is your ultimate test for reality.
Mm.
And then people will start actually creating this list we just created. And that's when it gets created as well. This is really not, we're going to look at the ultimate test, but this is really not the ultimate test. This is your personal test. It's your personal beliefs. It's based on your personal experiences, your intuition. It's based on your judgments and thoughts. Could other people have different beliefs? Could someone not smell that? Maybe someone doesn't have that past experience, so it's not at all real for them.
Well,
Like
isn't
a
it-
black cat crossing in front of you. That happens to you, and then all of a sudden you trip and break your arm. So it's definitely bad luck, and you're never going to have that experience. But another person's personal test for reality of a black cat crossing in front of them is they found a $100 bill on the ground.
or even like somebody mentioned smell before. Like, isn't like smelling something burned like a sign of a stroke? I think that's like one of the medical symptoms or something when you smell like a burned smell. You know, it doesn't. You know, it might not be something's on fire. You
Right.
know? But you would swear it is. Or, I mean, I'm sure if you ask like people in the justice system, there's eyewitnesses are not reliable. They're wrong all the time. You know, they would swear, they'd literally swear it was this person and it wasn't. They find out later with DNA evidence.
Mhm.
Have you ever
Yeah.
done that exercise where you have like 50 people in a line and you tell a secret into the first person's ear and then they tell a secret and it goes through the chain, and by the time it gets to the 50th person, there's like nothing to do with what was originally said?
Right.
Yeah. We call that telephone.
Telephone. Yeah.
When
That
I
wouldn't
was
happen.
growing up.
That wouldn't happen in the communication course, though.
Might.
All right. That's about all I have to say about the personal test. Is there anything else anybody sees to add before we move to the interim test?
Well, let's make sure, Desiree, are you clear
Yeah.
on that, Desiree?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically just how you personally perceive reality. And you can conclude all these things, all your senses, you know, what you see, it could include your beliefs, things you learned in the past, intuition, gut feeling. You know, some people like, you know, really believe that's real, you know, or some people are into numerology and stuff, you know, that's real, you know. Some people are not, and that they believe that's not real. That's all a personal test. Okay. Let me see. Stop sharing this one. And start sharing this one.
Hey, Joshua, welcome.
There's Joshua.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hey, Joshua, welcome.
Josh.
Thanks for being here and being in communication.
Mm.
Okay, the interim test for reality. And Desiree, you did really, I think, start to touch on that, like things learned in school or gravity. So, like, what's the category of something like gravity?
What is that? What do you mean?
Well, like, what category would something like gravity fall under?
Science?
Yeah, like maybe a,
It's a law.
It's a law of physics.
right. So what does it take for something to become like accepted as a scientific law or in physics?
Consensus.
Yeah. Exactly, consensus. You know, there's some scientists that believe one thing and some is another thing, but there is a consensus. And I think, you know, like gravity is that still considered a theory, or is that a law? I guess it's a law of gravity, right?
It's a
So
law of physics.
it's got so much agreement.
Well, the theory is where does it come from? But the
The
law
Big Bang Theory,
is,
right?
it does exist.
Yeah, and there's a certain amount of consensus around the Big Bang Theory, you know.
Right.
You know, another thing that's related to like science or this kind of thing is, you know, authority or expert. You know, so like if somebody's an expert on a subject, it might be a little bit more credible or real than somebody who's not an expert, right? And
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you get a large group of experts that have the same consensus,
yeah,
it's even most likely, absolutely for sure real, far more real.
yeah, absolutely. And then one of the things about science, it's reproducible. You know, you drop the apple or the marker, it's going to fall every time.
Yeah.
You could probably get a consensus of people to agree to that. It's reproducible, it's repeatable.
Well, and also my past experience says so. So there's some personal test reality there too. Which when Desiree brought that up, I was really looking, well, is what she's saying based on a past experience, or is she really talking about the science of it? And I think it was more about an interim test. Do you see that now, Des? Yeah.
So what is it that is distinct from the personal test and this interim test?
It's not based on what I perceive. It's based on what others perceive.
Very good. Or it could include you,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't have to be others. It could include you as well.
But the personal test is more about me first, my beliefs, my feelings, my thoughts, my judgments. And this is like a societal or a group belief.
Very good.
Wouldn't like laws fall under this category too?
Yeah.
Totally. Authority.
Okay. Yeah.
Laws, scientific laws. Here's another one.
Well, like laws, you know, like laws in one country, like it could be against the law to do X in the United States, but not against the law in Canada to do it. So for the United States, it's true.
Mhm.
Like if you violate this law, you'll get a ticket. But in Canada, they don't have that, so then you don't. So it could be different depending on where you are.
That's true.
Groups. Yeah, different groups have
Different
different laws. Yeah.
Different levels of groups. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, Tom, it's what I hear is also that you could be found guilty of something without you actually having been guilty. But the interim test is that if it's proven and it's decided that you're guilty, then you're guilty.
Yeah, like people that got convicted of murder and now they're getting off based on DNA when it was like from 20 years ago. And then they
Yeah.
proved that they didn't do it based on their DNA.
Yeah, and based on the interim test, then that person is labeled as guilty.
Yeah.
So these are all the, you know, something's plausible, believable, it's normal. And we're all like kind of in this world of dun, 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 dun,
Agreement reality.
Agreement based. Yep. Yeah, and the personal test, I don't care who agrees with me. It smells that way.
Yeah,
Mm.
seeing is believing.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's no agreement necessary or even looked for or asked for in a personal test. But in this one, interim test, it's all agreement.
Yeah, so Desiree, it's like some of the things you were saying before, like things you learned in school. Yeah, a lot of that's like agreed upon. That's, you know, maybe values of the Constitution or science, science.
I was going to say ethics or morality or.
Yep. Well,
Yeah,
the world
like-
is flat was definitely agreed upon reality. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, so some things could definitely like you have your personal test, right? But then it could also exist in the interim test. It's just whether or not the various levels of it, if there's agreement,
mhm.
Like if that's why perhaps on a jury, it's not just one person. There's like a jury of 12 people that have to agree. I would say that would be an interim test for reality. And of course, each individual juror has their personal test.
Mm.
Trying to think places where agreement reality gets us in trouble.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
Well, political agreement, you know. You could have agreements that you could have a group of people that are agreed to one thing and another group of people agreeing to another thing, and they both think it's true. That gets you in trouble.
that's happening quite a bit these days.
Be a source of conflict. Yeah.
I don't agree. You know, most of the shared realities of our life are a product of multiple quantities or multiple layers of agreement. You know,
I mean, it even gets down to the, who has the best dishwashing detergent,
yeah,
you know?
yep.
Mm.
Some are conflicting, but some are just like, oh, that's obvious, you know?
Yeah, so consumer
That's how
product ratings.
And that's how you live, is like, oh, isn't that obvious?
Or what doctors say,
And that changes your,
Mm-hmm.
I say expert.
the experts that may not be.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, if you look at doctors from the Middle Ages, they would basically put leeches all over you. That was the reality at
Right.
the time, agreed upon. And maybe someday, like when we're in Star Trek days, they'll look back at
They'll
sawing
laugh at
people.
us.
Really?
Right. They really did
Blade?
that? They really cut you open? Come
bring back
on.
the leeches.
Yeah.
Yeah,
know,
and maybe.
Cultural prejudices and racial beliefs, like as a culture, like a certain group of people are a certain way, or the whole Salem witch trial era, that was all based on agreement reality, right?
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah. They thought
That's a
they were
good
doing
point.
something great. They thought they were, putting these people out of their misery and protecting others from the evil spirits.
And
Yeah.
that was real.
And that was real. Yeah.
This is a good point, what you guys are just talking about, because it really, you can now look and see in those examples of how limiting it is to live inside of and to actually be unaware of the limits of interim tests for what gets created inside of the interim test for reality.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, like the Salem witches, that whole thing. They said, well, they're innocent if they actually die,
Yes.
and they all died.
Yeah. So, okay, great. Now they're dead and innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little limiting, especially for the
Yes,
ones that are innocent.
especially for the person that gets killed after they torture them.
Yeah.
Well, but then you have those faith-based beliefs that, you know, if you get sacrificed for the gods, then you have a glorious future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, like some of these could be personal test or interim, and really what distinguishes it is the agreement.
Mhm.
All right, good. Anything else before we move to the ultimate test?
Well, I'd just like to say that, you know, with the personal test, it truly is personal to the individual, right? And then we go out and we get agreement so that we create that interim test for reality. But and then things get a little confusing, I think, for people when they become codified in law. So it really seems like that is real, right? That is what's so, but it really isn't. It's all made up and agreed
Yeah,
upon.
like that like happens a lot with bullying and
Mm,
peer pressure. Like somebody starts it by themselves, like saying something that's not true about somebody else, and then other people start to believe it. And then before you know it, the whole school thinks it's true that this person is that or did that, because one person started with their personal test of reality, and then it became an interim test of reality.
mhm. Well, we're always trying to enroll people in our personal test.
Yeah. And if you get enough agreement, enough authorities, enough experts, then it becomes more and more real.
Yeah. Human rights is a good one.
Yep.
Yes.
Human rights.
It's ethics and morality.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't think necessarily this is to imply that something like gravity is not necessarily real. It's just that this is our test for it. So you could just, you know, distinguish I don't know how to say it, but it's like a certain amount of skepticism or realizing just where does your test come from can give you some power over, oh, not necessarily, maybe, you know.
Right. Yep.
Like gravity is true here on Earth, but if you're in space, there is no gravity.
That's true. Well, there's some, but it's
There
just a
is-
different
there is.
kind of
It's
gravity.
May not be observable the same way.
To a lesser degree, but there is.
No, I don't know that there is. It depends on where you are. But like one of, I think it was Einstein's or Newton's laws was a body that is in motion is in motion.
Stays in motion.
So
Yeah.
like if you're in space and you know, get detached from your spaceship, you're just going to keep going away because there's no gravity holding you to that spaceship.
Right.
Well,
You'd be out floating.
Yes, but that's the point. In some places there is, but on the moon there is, because rocks actually lay on the face of the moon. They don't float off.
Yeah, because that has its own gravitational
Yes,
force.
that's what I mean.
But
There's just different levels.
It's not as strong as the Earth, but then in space itself, not on the moon, there's no gravity.
What are we talking about?
Well, it probably still exists, but you're just not under the influence of gravity, right?
This is so perfect.
There's no math.
It's so
I'm
perfect.
Just trying to enroll you.
Yes.
you know, the actual space between the particles may not have gravity. However, the bodies that are far apart are
We need to
pulling
bring it
this-
back to the test of reality.
Back to reality.
But really, this is
Yeah.
perfect. Honestly, this is perfect because Tom was in the process of enrolling me in something that I had no agreement with.
Mhm.
And that's really what limits people, is because we live inside of our own interim test of reality, which stops us. It's a barrier to us actually being someone who can create a new possibility and bring it into the world where there is no agreement.
Yeah. And
So when you really get that agreement-based reality is all, well, at the end of this whole process in the advanced course, you get that it's all in language. It's all created in language.
Mhm.
I know for myself, my machine constantly, do I agree? Do I disagree? Do I agree? Do I disagree? For every
Yeah.
conversation.
Right.
Right. Well, that's a bunch of malarkey. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the final test. What is the test? What's the final test?
The ultimate
Okay.
test.
The ultimate test.
Where is it? Here we go.
It's at the end.
Hang on. I don't know how to do this sharing very seamlessly yet.
Oh, I think you're doing great. That's my reality.
You didn't get any agreement there, Jamie.
All right. Well, that's a good case. I didn't want any anyway. All right. Ultimate test for reality. Which level one has a can create the ultimate test for reality?
It's physicalness, or wait, hold on, let me think. It's
Physicalness.
the physicalness,
Mhm.
and then like if you could like measure it.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's not a word apparently.
But it's that's what I got so far.
What would you be measuring?
Like for example, the chair,
Okay.
you know,
What
and
would you measure about the chair?
the volume of the chair, like the height of the chair, the space that it takes in space.
Yeah. So like the distance from the leg of the chair to the
Right.
top of the chair.
That's right.
The
So like
distance.
distance.
hmm What
Good.
else could you measure about it besides distance?
Wait.
Weight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
What else
sorry.
could be measured? Well, first, what else can be measured? Don't limit to just the chair. What'd you say?
Weight.
Time,
Someone said time.
time, yes.
So can you measure the chair in time?
Yes.
That's
You
right.
measure it right now, yes.
Yep.
Yes. I remember now.
It exists in time now.
It is-
Now.
Yes, Tim, like I weighed myself yesterday and it was different than today, yes. I can measure myself in time.
But I felt like I weighed less yesterday,
Good for you. I don't agree.
and I didn't eat as much yesterday, so I don't understand.
Must have been the salt.
My wife agrees. I look thinner today.
Yeah. Okay, what else
And
about ultimate test? What else about physicalness?
What's in time, space, distance.
Yeah. How do you know? So when you measure a distance, when you measure something, what are the aspects of measuring something? That has to be,
As a beginning and an end and a middle.
yes,
Yeah.
very good.
Good job.
I love the advanced course.
I think there's only one more really to add, which is form.
Right.
And form kind of is the beginning, middle, and end
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah, this is why in the freaking self-expression leadership program, all of your end results are specific, measurable results.
Yep.
Written in
Measurable.
physicalness. Written down in physicalness, not in your head.
Form is more around energy. Is it a solid, liquid, gas?
Could be, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they can measure the hardness of minerals,
Mm-hmm.
Mohs hardness scale. It's a little bit science, but you can actually measure that. You can measure how, hard or soft substances are.
Mm.
So then what could we say about, Jamie, I'm just leading here. Tell me when to shut up.
No, it's great.
Well, it's actually already there. I see it now. So the second one, measurability. For something to be real, has to be able to be measured. It has to have a beginning, middle, and an end. It has to have form. It has to exist in time. So it has to be measurable.
Yeah.
So then, what now is common about all of this? If we look at all of these tests, personal, interim, and ultimate, what's the one thing? Well, Jamie, let's see. Is there anything else to say about the ultimate test?
I mean, to me, it's something that's physical and you can measure it.
Yeah. So if we look at the personal tests, are they actually a valid test for what's real?
Hmm.
What do
Is
you
that
think?
question for all of us?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Are they a valid test for what's real? The personal test.
Well, they're valid tests, but they won't tell you if it's real.
Well, what do you mean by they're a valid test?
Like, it's a valid question,
Well, yes.
and you'll have your reality, but it's not actual reality.
Right. So they're not a valid test. Your
No.
senses are not a valid test for reality.
That's right.
Certainly not your gut instinct.
Your feelings,
Feelings.
thoughts.
And social auto agreement with the interim test is also not a valid test. Some places
Yeah.
human rights are not necessarily a thing.
Yeah.
Or different people have different values,
Hmm.
So now what?
Okay. So.
So, I have a question.
Yeah.
So in the advanced course, this is like where the leader's talking about like this chair and the chalkboard and the microphone stand are
Mhm.
real,
Yep.
right? Because you can touch it, you can measure it. It has form.
Yes. There's another aspect of this whole conversation that brings it all together. And we only have 10 minutes. Are we to do this whole thing today, or are we doing some next week too?
We had it planned for 2 days, 2 sessions.
Yeah.
We can always do mocks with it next week.
Say what you're going to say, Tim. 'cause
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So,
Yeah, you can't just say, okay, well, never mind, wait till next week.
no, I know. I got that. It's not gonna,
Tom's on the edge of his chair.
I really am.
We want to
So-
know what's real.
It's all made up. Mhm.
Well, let's just look. So Tom, what you just said about in the advanced course, the leader will have you look at something, correct? So look at some object right now in front of you and really get clear that there is a beginning, middle, and end to every object. And then that object, let's say it's a chair, is up against or sitting on or laying on some other object that also has a beginning, middle, and an end. Every physical thing in the universe has a beginning, middle, and end. And there is no disagreement among any objects in the universe. Everything is in agreement. There's a beginning, middle, and end to everything. There's an end to something, and immediately there's a beginning of something. It may even be the space in between, but there's a beginning of the space, a middle of the space, and an end of a space. And none of it is ever in disagreement. Never, ever. So, in other words, the basis of physicalness is that everything exists with a beginning, middle, and end, and it's always in perfect agreement with everything else in the physical universe. So the chair sitting on the floor is in perfect agreement. Your house in your community is in perfect agreement with the community. Everything is in total and absolute agreement at all times in the entire solar system. So, physicalness, okay, here's a leap, here's a jump. Is there any meaning or significance in physicalness?
No.
No, it really isn't. It's just,
Well, we give it a lot of meaning though.
yes, but is there inherently any meaning in physicalness?
No.
No,
just
it's all
that.
empty and
It's just
meaningless.
that.
Right. So
It's
the
measurable,
universe,
so.
the physicalness just is. It's always right now, now, it just is. And it's always physical. And it's always in perfect agreement. So if you look at all of reality, it's all agreement. Everything is all around, is all based on agreement. Now, where does agreement exist? How do we create agreement?
And
I
language?
was talking on mute.
Well, then you weren't talking, so it wasn't created, so it didn't exist.
Well, my dogs heard it. So.
Well, that's the, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there, it actually make noise. But yes, you're right, Tom. It all exists in language. And then from this point in the advanced course, then they open up to creating who you are in language as a possibility. Because when you really get that, all of your personal and interim tests, are actually not real, and you're no longer limited by that, that you're really only limited by the physicalness of physical things, then you can actually create in language who you are as a possibility that's unlimited.
And you kind of add to that as well, that your access to any of it, physical, interim, personal, it's all in language.
That's right.
So there's no direct access for human being of reality. There's only language.
So
You
now,
know, the door is still a door. The door is solid. I shouldn't try walking through it, but my access to it is in language. If I call that a window, or, you know, I try looking out, it isn't going to work. Or, you know, you get more absurd than that, but
well,
it is your access to reality. I got to be careful how I say that. How human being accesses reality is in language,
yes.
and
And
only in language.
And there is a required basis of agreement that the letters DOOR indicate the word door in English. That is something that we agree is something you can open and walk through.
That's right.
All of it
Yep.
is agreement
Yep.
in language.
Yep. Yep.
That's why enrollment is critical in creating a life that you actually love and have authored, to enroll others using language
Great agreement.
and create agreement. Yep.
Agreement. Mhm.
Since you generate language, you can have anything you want for yourself, for your life,
Yes. Well,
out of enrolling someone else that you already got it. To
so
paraphrase that statement a little bit.
yeah, you did.
So is that clear for you guys?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Tom, Monica, Joshua, Desiree, what are you seeing now for yourself, or what are you hearing?
Well, like,
Coming
you
on
know,
to this conversation with 2 minutes left, powerful conversation in itself. Still a little conceptual. I missed a lot of it. What I'm hearing is that my reality is shaped by what is actually out in what we would consider a physical world, where that world is defined by beginning, end, shapes, dimensions, laws, so on and so forth. That's reality. And creating reality is speaking something into that realm, into that world. I get that right?
Well, a couple of things, Joshua. So interim tests for reality are not actually real.
Mm.
So I forget how you worded it, but there was something there about laws. So will you get a ticket if you break a law? Yes. But is the law actually real?
No.
It's not. It's actually just something created in language and people agree to it. But the only thing that is actually real requires physicalness. So can you measure a law? No.
No.
There's
Measure
no
the
definitive
physical
time.
paper of the ticket, though.
Yes, that's a piece of paper.
So you could measure the speed, but speeding is an agreement. It's
That's right.
Mhm.
It's
The
actually,
limit, yeah.
yeah, it is an agreement that that's speeding. In some places in Germany, driving 100 miles an hour is just what they do on the Autobahn. It's not
Right.
speeding, that's driving.
right.
Right, and you're a hazard if you don't. You better pull in the right lane.
All agreement.
so
Yeah.
here's a question. If I create something, right, for my life,
Mhm.
you know, whatever I create, I'm just creating another personal test for reality or an interim test for reality.
Well, let's look. When you create, are you creating a possibility in language, or are you creating something physical?
Well, I'm saying like within the aspect of this conversation in the course.
Mhm.
So what comes next is me being able to realize that the limitations on my life are not real.
No, they're
They're
not.
put there by me,
Made up.
by society, by, you know, whatever. So if I were to create something new for myself without limitations,
Yes.
isn't that just another agreement reality or another personal reality.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's just as real as the limitations I put on myself before this conversation.
Yes. So what will be real is what in physicalness will show up inside of what you've created as a possibility.
Specific measurable results.
You might have a stack of dollar bills or gold bars that are physical. That would
Okay.
be real.
So then the results are real.
If it's measurable, has a beginning, middle, and an end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the gold bars, Tim, measure, I guess, value, which even values something that we created.
Yeah.
It's
It's-
agreement, reality,
An
reality
agreement.
agreement.
So
yeah.
wealth is also an agreement. There's no such
Yes.
thing as wealth.
No,
Got it.
right. But there is what we call gold, just like there is a door, there is water,
Right,
there's physical gold.
right. So
This is a
what,
good- This is a good place to stop since it is after 8.
okay,
Yeah.
Just now start looking between now and next week what you call real, how you shape
Wow.
your life around what you call real, how you shape your life around what others enroll you in as real,
Mm.
and what is actually physically real, and see how that all creates your life. See what, and bring to next, this is what I would say about next week's call, is we bring to the limitations that we've lived inside of based on our test for reality. And then we can create newly something for each of us. What do you think, Jamie?
I like it. I like it.
Mm.
I'm just looking right now, all the expert opinions I rely on.
Yeah, you might have less anxiety between now and next week.
It's possible.
Hey, Jamie, do you want
More
to
than
send
likely.
the list that we created tonight to everybody who's on the call?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just make it into one document.
That's
That would be really helpful.
all right. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Well, hold on one second. One last pitfall is to think that you can use what we just talked about. What we just talked about has no usefulness.
Yeah.
If you try to use it, it's simply turning it into personal tests for reality. So
I
you
gotta
want
go.
to, you want to dwell